Cicero, too slow. Nexus, Cedric show. And APAC, go Zoe go. I'm David Hood, and this is Deadline, DBN's monthly news program. Dateline, September 2025. For our feature story, the diplomacy hobbies in both Europe and North America have enjoyed face-to-face regional championship tournaments for decades. The Asia-Pacific region started their own regional title 3 years ago, with the 2025 event being held in late August in conjunction with the Cane Toad Classic in Brisbane, Queensland. Later in this program, we'll talk to Australian player Zoe Cameron about how she won that championship title, what the APAC itself means to the hobby in that part of the world, and she'll talk about the new event that she and the other members of her club, the Melbourne Megabats, are hosting in October. It's called the Flying Fox Fandango. But first, a look at headlines from around the world of diplomacy. The main event final for Nexus Season 9 has finally come to a close, with New York player Cedric Williams surprising no observers of that game by ending with a commanding 9-center lead as England over second-place finisher Nikita as Turkey. Timothy Zhu's Russia came in third. This press tournament has become one of the hobby's premier events, with every move of its top board followed closely and analyzed deeply by diplomacy fans both within the Nexus server and as well as right here on DBN through Ed Sullivan and Keith Worstel's The Diplomats show. Cedric fostered a strong EG alliance from the beginning, growing through French centers and then turning on both Russia and Germany to take dots from them as well on his way to 16 centers by the end date of 1910. As we record this episode of Deadline, interviews with each of the players are being released as the Diplomats episodes, so look for that exciting content on the Diplomacy Broadcast Network YouTube channel. If you are not a member of the Nexus Discord, rectify that right now using the link below so that you can join one of their many online leagues and events focused on the play of diplomacy with deadlines longer than face-to-face and virtual face-to-face. In news from the European face-to-face circuit, the Swiss National Championship completed its 2025 event the first weekend of September in Sierre, with Vincent Reulet of France winning the gold. Christophe Bourget once again organized this Swiss title bout, which featured Italian Davide Cleopatre coming in second and Canadian Tanya Gill in third. Other events coming up in Europe include the UK National Championship, September 19 through 21 in Warrington, run by Bradley Grace, the second annual Hechtstechen in Dresden on October 11th through 12th with Robert Schuppe in charge, and the European Diplomacy Championship in Leiden. That's the first weekend of November and hosted by Jelte Kuiper and Micah Bloom. This year's EDC already has 65 registrants as of the recording of this broadcast. That's a lot. So it is obviously shaping up to be a Euro Dipcon for the ages. You can find links to all of these upcoming tournaments using the DBN's website's schedule page. As far as the North America face-to-face tour goes, all eyes are now focused on this year's North American Diplomacy Championship, the Dipcon, scheduled for October 3rd through 5th in Chicago, and run by that city's long-running club, the Windy City Weasels. As of this writing, there are 7 boards of players signed up to compete for this regional title, with potentially more signups on the way. The event will include social gatherings, 4 rounds of classic diplomacy, a mini tournament for the new Era of Empire variant on Thursday night, a weekend-long running of Keith Worstel's 1862 variant, and a whole lot more. Use the link provided to check out the website for more information about this exciting Dipcon, which also doubles as the 19th running of the club's Weasel Moot tournament. And then later that month, during the last weekend of October, the diplomacy event at Carnage in Vermont will again be hosted by David Miletsky. In addition to the usual diplomacy rounds, Carnage is scheduled to host a face-to-face running of the Global Imperial Diplomacy variant. So you'll want to check out how to sign up for this year's event using the link on the DBN schedule page. On this news show, we try to keep you abreast of the latest uses of diplomacy in the academic world, where the game has been used, for example, to teach students history and political science, to model negotiation theory and tactics, and to examine social science and group dynamics. This month, we report from the hard-charging field of artificial intelligence. A recent paper presented at the 42nd International Conference on Machine Learning, which was held in Vancouver, proposed a new large language model-based AI agent to play diplomacy without the large amounts of data and computing power that is needed to run a state-of-the-art AI agent such as Meta's Cicero. In their paper, which is entitled DipLLM, Fine-Tuning LLM for Strategic Decision-Making in Diplomacy, 6 researchers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing described the problem in designing an AI player to handle adequately the immense possible moves, which can approach 10 to the 64th power in possible move choices per turn. Their prescription is DipLLM, designed to perform other AI agents in its ability to learn equilibrium policies in a manner requiring much less computer power and data input. Interested? Scared? Bored? Then check the article out for yourself using the link provided. Each month here on Deadline, we like to highlight the latest and greatest video, audio, or visual content from those whom we call our DBN media partners. In August, the guys at the Diplomacy Games podcast, Gavin Atkinson and Ken Gordon, released a new episode in which they interviewed Noam Brown, this year's World Dipcon champion. In addition to discussing that WDC win, Noam talks about his experiences on the Cicero AI project, his prescription for getting better at diplomacy in general, and face-to-face in particular, and how the 4 World Dipcons he's attended differed from each other. In other media news, Sploak is back. One of our hobby's favorite jokesters has just released several short videos on his YouTube channel. Let's just say that his one about players discussing the most iconic diplomacy match ever may include a familiar face, as will his video on Italy opening up and explaining how it plays, or frankly doesn't much play, in a typical game. Here's hoping that Sploak will eventually get around to making a video about why Jordan Connors is the way he is. I, for one, feel that such an expose in a video really needs to be made. You can find links to these media partners in the show notes. It's September, which means the hobby's virtual leagues are beginning their fall stretches towards those championship battles at the end of the season for league glory and all-important qualification points for the next DBN invitation. The Snake Pit League out of Australia just hosted a game day earlier this month, with the game ending in a 13-13-8 three-way draw, including England, Turkey, and France. The UK-based Tour of Britain also had a game day on September 14, featuring a game with Darcy Morris in Italy edging out 2 7-center powers, Turkey and Germany. The day before that, which was September 13th, saw the release of DBN's League Night show. We covered 4 VDL games as well as analysis of 3 recent virtual games from the Europe-based league called the 7 Years' War. This included the first ever league game played in the Polish language. Check out that episode of League Night using the link provided, and if you want to play in the October game days for any of these leagues, then join the VWDC Discord server or the Snake Pit Discord using those links, which are also provided. The results from the inaugural Nexus United Cup are in, with the 4-person team of Riaz Varani, Andrei Gribikov, Bradley Grace, and Volpes taking top honors as the team called 50% Tariff. This 4-month-long competition featured play of the game in multiple formats: press diplomacy, gunboat diplomacy, team diplomacy, and the 2-player variant France versus Austria. In all, 18 teams participated in this exciting event run on the Nexus Discord server by Superstition, aka Keith Worstel. Coming in second was the A team, which was full of various Australians, with the London team full of assorted Brits as well, coming in third. There are 2 opportunities remaining for online diplomacy play through Nexus right now, including a new wave of game starts for its Press League and Speedboat games, which is gunboat with 5-minute turns. Those games start virtually every day on Nexus. Use the link I've provided to get in on the fun. Let's go now to a segment of Deadline which is called What to Play. in which we highlight other board games which are particular favorites of diplomacy players or which really should be. This month, our special correspondent Hal Schild talks to Tom Gale from Nightingale Games about his upcoming release of a game called Imperial Borders.
Tom, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So, Tom, let's kick this off. Let's start with you. So, tell me a little about your history and how you got into gaming.
Like most of us, I've been gaming all my life, board games, computer games, from back in the 80s. I'm 51, so I've been playing games a while. I started as an artist at making PC computer games, like working on titles like Heroes of Might and Magic and Warcraft and Majesty and Zoo Tycoon. And then gradually I transitioned to board games, working with a company called Game Table Online, which made board game versions online. So that helped with the transition. And then I met up with Larry, and I can tell you more about that, but that's how the beginnings of Nightingale Games started, which is a board game publisher.
So you went to school in St. Louis and got a fine arts degree. When you were going to school, did you think you were going to get into gaming, or was the fine arts, did you think it would go in a different direction?
Going into college, it was a fuzzy feeling, and I was interested in things like architecture and computer development, but also art and theater and film and animation. And so it didn't really know at the time, but I was president of the Washington University Multimedia Group, and it was a sort of new thing back in the 90s. And I found myself skipping certain classes to play computer games. Little did I know that was contributing to my skills and development towards my profession.
What year did you go to school?
92 to 96.
Okay. So we're in the world of Atari, Commodore.
I was a Commodore guy. So we had all the way from the PET in the 70s up through the VIC-20 and up to the C-128. But really, Commodore was the big thing that influenced me from a computer games point of view. As far as board games, I mean, Axis and Allies came out in 84 or something like that. But you go to Toys R Us and you get all excited when you see a board game that's not a traditional Hasbro Checkers or Parcheesi or something.
Did you ever stumble across Diplomacy, or that wasn't anything that was on your radar?
Diplomacy, we played it, the Avalon Hill, and it was problematic because it took so long. So, 7 players, 7 hours. Everybody hated each other by the end of it. In a good way, I suppose, maybe. But yeah, so I that includes Diplomacy.
Okay, so it touched you. Talk to me just briefly what got you from journey from St. Louis college degree to, in 2016, starting Nightingale Games.
Well, Seth Spalding, who was the art director at Cyberlore Studios, and so he sent out a packet, and I seemed perfect, so I responded. We met at GDC in San Francisco in spring of 96. Had good vibes. Cyberlore was, just a handful of folks at that time working on Al-Qadim, I believe, sort of Arabian Nights version of D&D. I stuffed everything in my car and drove up to Massachusetts, Western Mass, where they started, and started working on games like Heroes of Might and Magic, The Price of Loyalty, which is an expansion, and they had just wrapped up one of the Warcraft expansions.
And then how did you get from there to Nightingale in just a brief...
Well, I worked at a couple other studios. I moved east towards Boston and as a contract artist for games that were online versions of board games at Game Table Online, which was founded by Joe Minton, who was the CEO of Cyberlore. they were working with Hasbro to do D&D online. That led to meeting Larry Harris, who designed Axis and Allies. We formed a little group where we were going to work together on his next big game he was working on. Just me and Larry working together, and Joe helped me form the LLC, and then I took it and ran with it with Larry for quite some time in development for War Room. And so I was a one-game company for, almost 7 years.
Now, let's fast forward a bit. Tell me about War Games briefly, and then talk to me more about Imperial Borders, which is your newest game coming out.
War Room, as designed by Larry Harris, it was percolating in his head for a couple of years, and then, like I said, he brought us on, and it just took 5 years of trial and error and slow iterations on development. Yeah, iteration after iteration. I learned that in my computer game development years, that the last 5 or 10% is often the hardest and the longest. So we creeped on that, and then had a Kickstarter in 2017, I believe, our first Kickstarter for War Room. That was successful. And then in the early 2021, we had a second print Kickstarter, and then we also did a third printing without a Kickstarter. We have less than 100 left in the warehouse for a War Room, so we're just about to sell out, and who knows when we'll do another print run given the tariffs.
Right.
That's a whole nother ball of wax to talk.
We'll get into that on the next point. So very successful game. I imagine Larry was very happy with it.
Yeah. I mean, all the effort, if you put a lot of effort and love into something, then it pays off. Blood, sweat, and tears and all that.
And now take us to your latest endeavor.
So it's actually been in the works since, the 2017 or so. I mean, it was percolating in Larry's mind for, all through the teens, but we didn't start in earnest until 2016 or so. And that's Imperial Borders, which has a lot of similar features to War Room, in the plotting secret orders simultaneously and the grand scope of it. But it plays very different because War Room is really a team-based game where it's two sides, the Axis versus the Allies, and your alliances never change. So you're always conferring with your teammates, and your teammates are never going to betray you. Whereas Imperial Borders is based in Europe with 6 different powers, 6 different nations, all potentially backstabbing each other at any moment. While there's overlap with certain features, it has a very different play style, and it's also a little bit shorter because it has a fixed time limit, whereas War Room could go on for days and days and days, and it's zoomed into just Europe instead of encompassing the whole
Very
world.
diplomacy-like, it sounds like.
It is. It's a little more complex in that your diplomacy. In Imperial Borders, you're rolling lots of dice. It's a Larry Harris game, so you're rolling buckets of dice. There's some tactical choices you make during battles with your battle stance, whether you want to be offensive or defensive, and who you bring, where you put them in the lines of battle. And it's a little bit more complicated than diplomacy, but it's still a Larry Harris game, which has somewhat of a beer and pretzels vibe, where it's not like ASL or something.
So Tom, tell me the premise behind Imperial Borders.
Okay, well, it's a historical war game set in Europe in 1815, just after Napoleon's been exiled for the second time. And there are 6 major powers. There's Great Britain, France, Spain, Prussia, Russia, and Austria. And they each start with their little zone, and the idea is to expand outward, gobble up the neutral territories. But the game's subtitle is the Congress of Vienna. And so historically, that's when in 1814, they got together and discussed, and there was a relative peace that lasted for almost 100 years up to World War One. That's relative, so there were some scuffles, but for the most part it was peace. But here is an alternate history where what if they all went at each other again and decided to, same old fighting each other over and over again, marching in and squabbling over the territories. And whoever ends up with the most prestige and power at the end of the game is declared the winner.
What do you think the spark for this game was?
Larry Harris is all about global war games, historical settings, and on a grand scale. So he thought what he was interested in this period. Napoleonics is a very specific genre in wargaming, and so he wanted to put his take on that era. And as opposed to Warham, we had stacks of commands, but in this game we have little plastic minis so you can line up your little armies and your cavalry and your cannons, and so people who love that Napoleonic era can get their fix in a Larry Harris style game. And then you throw in the diplomacy aspect, and it's sort of a hybrid of...
Right. And how long do you think a game of Imperial Borders will last? Real time.
So that can vary a lot depending on if you put time limits on the discussions, because that's usually takes the longest. It's the biggest slice of the pie, is how long you're gonna let people hash it out. And experienced players are much faster than inexperienced players, and you could play the game 2 players if you wanted, and just have whether you're controlling multiple nations or just England versus France.
No, I am an original Kickstarter contributor. I pretty much did it blind. I just knew of Larry, seemed like a really cool thing, jumped right in. That's about 2 years ago, I'm gonna guess.
It was last year, so 2024.
2024.
Okay. Summer of 2024 is when the campaign ended.
Longer for some reason, but that was in a different economic world, a different tariff world. So talk a little bit about where today. This is being recorded early September 2025. Where are you with the challenges of shipping, printing, all the stuff that a lot of small companies are now facing?
Yes, so it's as far as tariffs go, that's still a big question mark, because it doesn't hit you till it hits you, and we don't know whether it's going to hit us or not, because the timing of it is only 3 months out.
And you just wanted to make a great game, and now you're tied up in geopolitics.
Yeah, I feel like if we weathered the storm through COVID, we were pretty, we've got thick skin by now. I play it safe naturally, and so we're in pretty good shape compared to a lot of companies that are folding.
Would you say it's safe to say that by Christmas time, people have game in hand, or it's just who knows?
That would depend where you live. So we have various hubs around the world internationally. So obviously the people in Hong Kong who ordered the game will get it faster, and then the container ships have to sail to where they're going, and will they make it past the Houthis in the Red Sea? Will they go a different route and cost twice as much? Will things go through the Panama Canal? Will there be a huge traffic jam? Or will there be a port strike? Will a giant
understood
rogue waves and all that, or what
What's your favorite part of Imperial Borders? Like, what do you think is the coolest thing about the game as we wrap this up?
So it's kind of the core feature, which is the simultaneous secret planning of orders. In War Room, you draw out the little codes of where up to 9 groups commands are going, and so you'll just write down the destination of their movement with a code, which is written on the map. Whereas In Imperial Borders, you have a larger map of Europe with a dry erase pen, and so you're actually drawing lines. So it's a little more thematic in that instead of writing little codes, you're actually plotting on a board where you want to go. And the discussions surrounding that, whether you're talking with an ally, hey, let's gang up and do this, and the big aha moment where everyone goes wah is always the bidding, where somebody outbids somebody else unexpectedly, and that's in both games, War Room and Imperial Borders. But some people love the combat and rolling dice, but I feel like that's a little more understood by the audience.
Right.
Whereas the simultaneous secret plotting of orders helps keep the game going along, so there's a lot less downtime, and there's a lot more interaction and paying attention to what other people are doing. So I would say that's the key selling point of Imperial Borders and War Room.
And Tom, if anyone wants to go find out more about Imperial Borders, about Nightingale Games, maybe about your new one coming out, the City of Demons, where do they go?
They can go to search for Imperial Borders or War Room or Nightingale Games, and on our website there are links to our Discord, and that's how you can play virtual versions either on Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator. And so you can sort of try before you buy or at least take a look, even if you can't find any friends to play with. That seems to be one of the biggest troubles, is finding friends to play with for these bigger games. But yeah, and we have a link to our store, so you can go and pre-order Imperial Borders still. That's on our website. And next year we'll probably try to attend more conventions, but it's quite possible we sell out of Imperial Borders with pre-orders, because the print run's quite low and we're playing it safe as far as warehousing costs and things like that. So,
well, I'll make a quick pitch here at the end. There is Carnage up in Vermont in late October, if you want to venture not too far from home, and you're always welcome at DixieCon in Memorial Day weekend, where you'll get 40 or 50 game players there if you can make either one. Well, Tom, thank you for taking the time today and enlightening us about Nightingale Games, Imperial Borders, and your background. You have a great day. Good luck with shipping and everything with Imperial Borders. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. We've done it before, so we can do it again. Thank you.
And now, for our feature presentation, we offer the latest in our series of segments called the Winner's Circle, in which we interview a recent tournament or league winner to find out how they did it and how it feels to come out on top. This month, it's Australian player and Debian personality Zoe Cameron regarding her recent win at the Asia Pacific Championship. Zoe Cameron, welcome back to Deadline.
Thank you so much, David. Pleased to be here, and pleased to be here on such an occasion as well.
Absolutely. Congratulations. We're going to talk about your big tournament win in a little bit, but first, I usually like to start with people's diplomacy origin story. So tell us what you want to tell us about that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I suppose the first thing to know, and something that I always like to express, particularly because we have such a growing hobby at the moment in the Asia Pacific region, I have been playing for all up a very short time. So I played my first ever game in late 2023. I was very fortunate in that was a house game at Andrew Goff's house. So that is certainly a privilege that I had when I was being introduced to diplomacy. My second, third, and fourth games were at the Melbourne Open in 2024. I mean, unless you count a VDL game where I got absolutely stampeded as unknown player in France, if I recall the commentary correctly. So that's just a little bit of the ins and outs of the details of when I actually started. I think that's important to express, to let new players know that you have the potential to become good quickly, because I have been surprised by my own development over the last year and a half. But what I really want to shout out actually is a connection that I realized a lot later, which was my dad was really fundamental in, I think, bringing me to this game in such a roundabout way. So I'm an only child. I'm very close with both my parents. My dad was very much the person who taught me how to play chess, taught me how to play poker, bluffed with me in Cluedo, which was, you have no idea how fiercely you can bluff in Cluedo until you play with my dad, because he is on another level. I would love if he would play diplomacy sometime. He also, when we were on road trips together when I was young, he talked me through the history of the world wars. He's a real history buff. So I actually feel like a lot of where I'm at now comes from a really lovely connection with my dad, and it's really nice to think about that as part of my story.
That is actually a great origin story. So I thank you for sharing that with us. All right. Well, you mentioned the Melbourne Open. I know you had some tournament experience prior to this year's Asia Pacific Championship. Describe that tournament experience.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to me, David, is just that I have actually been to a lot of tournaments, and I would absolutely advocate for any newer player, go to tournaments. You meet great people, you have a great time, your game improves. So yes, Melbourne Open was my very first one. It was a fantastic time, and I had a shared board top in a Western Triple. I'm sorry. But that was really special for me as a newer player. I then went to, I believe my next tournament was World Dipcon. Again, sort of going along as more of a, it's nice to go to Europe in May. And I believe I looked at those results recently. I think I came 64th out of 74 or something like that.
But who's counting?
Me now. At the time, I just thought, I'm not going to even think about this. But something that I got a lot out of at WDC, both WDCs, because I also attended the most recent WDC in San Francisco at Whipping. I really, really valued the chance to play with players that I might normally have never been able to play with. And learn from really, really, really good players, even if that learning was by being used as the tip of the spear to their ultimate advantage and enjoyment on boards. But it did genuinely teach me a lot. I've also been to a lot in the Asia Pacific region, of course, and I've had a really great experience in the Summer Classic this year, with great thanks to Michalis for TDing. I think I've definitely felt a difference between the Asia Pacific tournaments and the European and American tournaments that I've been to. I think it's no secret that the Australians like to be a little bit silly with it. There's also, I think, a sense of play where you lie in wait and you wait for someone else to make a blunder, and you play a weighty game, which is funny considering that we are not particularly well known for long untimed rounds or anything like that, but that's a lot of play that I see here. And it's informed everything up to now. Came third at the Asia Pacific Championship last year, which was a big surprise, very unexpected, very delightful. And while I don't think I went into this year's going, I want to, I wasn't going in hungry, but I definitely had that little thought in the back of my head of, it'd be nice to walk away with a best country. It'd be nice to keep the third, maybe keep the third.
And yet, as it turns out, you were aiming too low with your expectations. How did this happen? How did this APAC win happen for you?
Oh my goodness. I'm honestly still processing it. I've been told by a few friends that the first win can take up to a week to sink in, and I'm not at the week yet, David. I think there are a few factors. I mean, to the previous tournament experience, I wouldn't say that I have Bangkok scoring locked in my head, Bangkok scoring being what the Cane Toad Classic uses. I wouldn't say that I have it locked in my head, but I almost have it at a subliminal level that I know sort of the beats of what a good tournament looks like for someone. I know that you can have some solid scores, and then if you have a really stellar final round, that can make a huge difference. And I think it's for those who have watched the stream, they will be aware that round 3 was an extremely exciting round where Peter McNamara and I both sort of in a way raced, I will say, even though we were both very much playing on our own boards. And I think that was part of the success. Certainly for me, it was.
Sure.
But coming off solid, first round, second round scores that weren't even necessarily board tops. My second round, I didn't board top. And knowing that can actually be advantageous. So I think firstly, having that bit of a sense of what the shape of a good tournament under this scoring system with some of these players might look like really helped. And I'm happy to go into more detail, although I have to say, I get a little nervous about discussing my games back. I often think about the TV show Survivor and Final Tribal Council, where someone is sitting there blithely describing how they felt they played the game, and other people are sitting around going, "Oh no, it wasn't like that at all." I'm always terrified that that's going to be me when I talk about my diplomacy games back. So I should probably just say, with a grain of salt, anything that I go into in more detail. I mean, off the bat, Western triples. I felt very bad for anyone who had to cover that on the stream, that I was cementing the Australian Western triple stereotype. And it has been pointed out to me that it was potentially not a coincidence that my final game, where there was notably not a Western triple, was my best one. But as I say, I think those solid scores in round 1 and round 2 really massively helped. And of course, it's, I'm talking very solipsistically at the moment about the scores and my knowledge of the shape of the tournament, but as we all know, it so comes down to who you're on a board with, the vibe of the board at the time. Yes. I often think of it as the culture on the board that you're all trying to work out together as a group of 7. Imagine a little community standing around a fire being like, what are we doing about this guy? And I would say that the alliances that I had in each of those games were incredibly fundamental to my win. Very much in a position many times of getting to be the person who was facilitating discussions, encouraging people to talk to each other, encouraging people to give each other another chance in a way that was perhaps just slightly a little more to my advantage than to at least one of theirs. And I had such incredible boards. Huge shout out to absolutely everyone on all of my boards, particularly the newer players who fought really hard and really fiercely in a tournament where there were some particularly fast, sharp rounds where people were playing to really make a dent in the scores.
Yeah, given the format, particularly of the first 2 rounds, you really had to move pretty quick to get any kind of score.
Yes, and that's not generally my preferred approach. I like to go slow. I like to be subtle and then kind of, get the edge right at the end. And I knew that I couldn't rely on that, particularly not on Saturday, not on those 2 Saturday rounds, which I think I remember being quite nervous going in on the Saturday morning, and I think that was because I knew at some level that I would have to be a bit more of a shark than I usually am.
Well, big surprise, one has to adapt to the conditions of that particular situation in order to prevail. It's a one size does not always fit all, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking to people afterwards, particularly people who'd had a bit less exposure to this particular scoring system, or people who were more used to playing longer games, it was certainly a little, it was a little perturbing. And even the final game, even round 3, which ended up being through to the start of 1910,
Right.
was still shorter than some people like to play, and certainly still shorter than some people feel they do their best at.
Oh yeah. There are definitely people that prefer unlimited online or unlimited face to face. And it's true both directions. You get Europeans that go to tournaments that are used to everything ending in 1907, and it can be hard sometimes to adapt. And absolutely the reverse can be true. But the players that are really good that you see every year, regardless of where they're from, they can know how to adapt.
Absolutely. And I'm taking that away with me because I want to keep going to tournaments, David. I want to keep traveling for tournaments if I'm lucky enough to
Everybody
experience
wants you to keep coming to tournaments. There's
Thank
no
you.
question about it.
It's such a great time. It's all about the people, really. It's all about the people.
It is. Well, speaking of people, give us a couple of shout outs. Anybody that you played with in particular that you'd like to highlight, whether that be an experienced shark or someone who was there, for the first or second time in a tournament, either one.
My goodness. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I genuinely do want to give shout outs to pretty much everyone. I would like to say, certainly for my first game, I really want to give a big shout out to Connor Muirhead, who's starting to play a bit more VDL. We've also seen him featured in club games. He's a Canberra player out of the ANU Diplomacy club there. And so that first board I was with Jason Gray also deserves a shout out. Love working with Jason. It hasn't always been that way, but I think we've gotten to a really good place where we can show up on a board together. We know what the other's looking for. We know how to talk to each other. We have that cultural alignment so that we can build from there. And there was certainly a sense that some people wanted there to not be a Western triple, and I just found that Connor approached discussions with such a genuine sort of earnest inclination to, share real ideas and to really see how we could work together, keep coming back to the table. He had a rough start to the game. If I recall correctly, he may have only had one build or potentially none. I would have to look carefully, but he definitely didn't have the builds that you would expect France to get.
Right.
And he recovered incredibly well on the strength of his very earnest and genuine diplomacy and negotiations. And it was a total delight to get to a shared 8 with him. So yeah, shout out to Connor and also Jason. On round 2, has to be a big shout out to Alex Batten, who I just love working with. Flashing back to last year's Asia Pacific Championship, we had 2 incredible games together where they should have finished higher. They should have finished higher, in all honesty. And I just have so much fun working with them. It was great to work with Ian as well. And again, being in that position where, again, it was a triple, 2 triples, both where there might have been some discontent, where people thought they couldn't work together, they couldn't quite trust each other, and being able to go, I think we've got something here. I think we just need to talk a little bit more. I can share what I think of this person and how I think they work. And love working with Alex, and great to meet Ian. And of course, can't miss out on Darcy Morris in Turkey, who had a stupendous board top. And that was great fun getting to race as France in Turkey, pretty much.
I'm sure.
Round 3. Everyone on that board deserves a shout out. But I really want to highlight 2 people that I think maybe didn't get the limelight that I certainly felt in game that they absolutely deserved. So we had Hudson McAllister in England and Arden Goff in Austria-Hungary. Hudson, so France and I decided to go against Hudson. Darcy and I decided to go against Hudson. And he put up the most terrific fight, defended so well, worked with Claire in Russia to protect his island, held on right to the end. We eliminated him in 1909. He fought incredibly well, was incredibly resilient, and just knew how to hang on. Hard mark. Arden, who came in, the thing that I think was underrated in how the Juggernaut, Claire and Shane were working incredibly well together. Of course, Darcy and I were working incredibly closely. Something that I really want to highlight about what Arden did that was honestly quite selfless was that they kept putting pressure on the centers held by the Juggernaut that were their home centers consistently, turn after turn, right towards the end. And I haven't had the chance to speak with Claire and Shane about this in detail, but I think that actually really, really helped the FG. And it was risky for them. They could have been taken out. They could have been eliminated. But instead, they kept putting that pressure. And, I would say that Austria was perhaps the third in that secret triple, certainly towards the end. So big shout out to Arden and Hudson, but honestly, everyone on that board. And I really have to give a huge shout out to Shane and Darcy as well. It was very exciting being with two serious contenders on that board, and they both played so valiantly and fought so hard. And
it was certainly a fun board to watch as an observer. So
yes.
I can only imagine as a player.
There was certainly a point where there were many points actually. There were lots of little moments that were deeply enjoyable, but I certainly got to a place on that board that I recognize internally, even if I don't know exactly the directions on the map how to get there. But I think about 1906, I just paused for a second and reflected, and I thought, I think I'm playing a pretty good game here. This feels good. It feels like I'm locked in, and yeah, it was really dynamic, really fun.
Well, I could just say congratulations again, and that's really
thank you.
Not really enough to say about that. But let's step back just a second. The Asia Pacific Championship has only been reinstituted here pretty recently.
Yes.
And, as a continental or a regional championship, whatever you want to call it, we've had the North American Dipcon, since the beginning of time and all that. How important do you think it is that the Asia Pacific region now has this sort of overall championship tournament?
Oh, David, I think it's huge. I think it's fantastic for the hobby. And I think it really reflects the amount of effort that so many incredible people have been putting in through quieter years as well. Honestly, there's been some stalwarts of the hobby that have been making sure this whole time that there's been a place for Asia Pacific players to come together. I've talked before about how incredible I think the Snake Pit is as a place for Asia Pacific players to come together online. But having an Asia Pacific Championship, I think it really cements the Asia Pacific as a serious player in diplomacy worldwide for exactly the reasons that you articulated. It's important to have a regional championship, something that people can come together over, something that people can fight for and with each other in a friendly way, mostly friendly. It really has been incredible just in 3 short years. I believe, I mean, the Cane Toad Classic last year, that was its inaugural year, and it being Asia Pacific this year, there was just a huge extra influx, extra focus. And I think not having been at the Cane Toad Classic last year, my understanding was the play was quite different this year. Both very exciting ways of playing and very different ways of playing. But this having an Asia Pacific Championship, I can't tell you how much it means. Something to bring the hobby here together and also to attract friends from elsewhere.
Absolutely, it's another level of excitement for what is already a very vibrant and growing hobby that you have down there.
Absolutely.
All right, let me change the subject just a minute. Talk about DBN. We just had a sort of a celebration of its 5-year anniversary, and Zoe Cameron is herself a DBN personality. So I wanted to get your take on DBN at its 5-year crossroads. What do you think it has meant in the past? What do you see as the future of this network?
Oh my goodness, what a question to be honored with. I mean, I've just felt so welcomed into the DBN family. I feel very, very honored to get to be on stream with all of you folks. I just pinch myself honestly when I get to like go to the time cards and say, oh yes, I can help out with this, I can help out with that, and get to watch games of friends from all over the world, get to talk about tournaments. Oh, it's just a dream. I've had so much fun, but talk about things that bring the hobby together. It brings in people who are interested, who've maybe played a little bit of diplomacy, who start having a little search and go, oh my goodness, there's this huge community. Oh my goodness, I'm going to open up Dip Chat. Oh my goodness, how many people are in here? The live watch events, I love getting online for League Night, whether I'm streaming or not, and just watching the chat, and it's so delightful. It brings so many people together who might never otherwise have the chance to meet. What are we doing? You know, students in the US, public servants in Australia, lawyers in Europe, all scattered across everywhere. And it is this place where we can come together and delightfully nerd out about this incredible game. I honestly can't thank DBN enough. I think that it has been a really big part of my enjoyment of the hobby, my connection with people in the hobby. And I hope that it just gets better and stronger, bringing in more voices, covering more tournaments. Sorry to add to everyone's workload, but it's just such a wonderful place to experience that sense of what we talk about, where we are all in a way figures in this community that get to come together, put some love on each other, have a little roast of each other, enjoy each other's games, come together over this game that we care so much about. And DBN is one of the premier places that we do that. And so I thank the network so much.
Well, I thank everyone who's a part of it, and it is a large field of people that help with DBN, not just in front of the camera, so to speak, but also behind the scenes and sandboxing the games and organizing everything. It's really amazing. Well, Zoe, I want to say this about DBN. It's better now that you're involved in it, because everybody that we bring in brings in something different, and so do you. And so we are happy to have you here. We're happy to celebrate with you on this tournament win, which I'm sure will be the first of more than one. And when you ever come down from the euphoria, yes, I see that. When you ever come down from the euphoria, and you could sort of hobnob again with us common people, just let us know, because we want to make sure that we give you the right, respect for now, and then we'll start ribbing you later once you come down from the euphoric height that you're on.
The ribbing has already started, David, and I am here for it.
We're
I
here for
honestly think that the ribbing is respect. I take it that way. That way.
Oh yeah. No, I agree. Well, Zoe, thanks for being on Deadline. I really appreciate you making time for this, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts you want to tell people about why they ought to go to a tournament?
Well, I do have one particular final thought, and I'll start with a story that I meant to tell a little earlier about something that might have been a bit of an omen for me in terms of this tournament. So my club, the Melbourne Megabats, I shouldn't say my club, the club that I'm a part of. Shout out to Robert Hillier, shout out to Andrew Goff, shout out to Peter McNamara, shout out to so many wonderful organisers. The club that I'm a part of, the Melbourne Megabats, we are named after the grey-headed flying fox, which is a type of fruit bat. And I was out in Brisbane on Friday, enjoying the sun, enjoying the beautiful blue skies, walking through the Botanic Gardens, when I heard this shriek, and over my head, in broad daylight, flaps a huge flying fox of exactly the type that is all up and down Australia's eastern seaboard, the grey-headed flying fox, which we are named after. And I grabbed my friend. I was like, it's a bat. And on that note, I would like to say there are many good reasons to come to a tournament, particularly if you're eyeing up the Flying Fox Fandango, which I will be the tournament director for first tournament I'm organising. Have a wonderful crew, Robert Hillier, Robert Chatterton, who you would have seen, Jonathan Sun, getting Arden Goff involved because I think they're so great. Get wonderful crew involved, and I am so excited to see some wonderful faces from hopefully around the world attending in Melbourne on the 18th to 19th of October. Get that little bit of extra experience, sink your teeth into what it's like to play at a tournament. We're really friendly down here, I promise. We only bite fruit.
Well, it is. The Fandango is something that's another new stop on the tour for the Asia Pacific region. Good for you. It is the middle of October, so if folks watching this, there'll be information that linked, in the show notes. You can link to at least the DBN schedule page, which has a connection to the Fandango. I hope that goes well, Zoe. And again, thanks for being on Deadline.
Thank you so much, David. Always a pleasure and immense pleasure to be part of DBN. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thanks to all of you watching at home. We hope you have enjoyed this broadcast of Deadline. If you have news, ideas for features, or feedback of any kind, please feel free to send an email to info@diplobn.com or drop me a line directly using davidhood@dixiecon.com. To review all of our broadcast offerings, visit our website, www.diplobn.com. This is David Hood signing off. I wish you brightness and bliss and, of course, Belgium.